Celtics with a 123-110 win over the New York Knicks, but like kind of the Knicks, kind of not the Knicks tonight. They didn't really have many of their big name players in, but
The
regardless of
JV Knicks.
the JV Knicks, regardless, the Celtics played everybody tonight. We got to look at a potential starting lineup with Jrue Holiday in there and Al Horford coming off the bench. I know that's been one of the talking points in the preseason so far, and who's going to be in that starting lineup. So we'll get a little bit into that. Jason Tatum with 28 points tonight, and I just want to remind everybody that today's show or tonight's show is brought to you guys by FanDuel. Great sponsor over there at FanDuel. We have our friends at Odds Are, and we have the fine folks at HelloFresh. We'll get into those sponsors a little bit later. But as you guys can all see, Josue is at the TD Garden tonight as they take it down around him. So he's nice enough to mute himself, but it's not too bad, Josue, so don't worry about it. Josue, give us your first impressions from tonight's win.
All right, there we go. I don't know why the mute. It's like a delay sometimes. Yeah, look, my first impression was very reminiscent of the first preseason game we saw here at TD Garden. Where you felt that excitement. You felt that, the crowd was really into it. But the only difference is you're seeing these guys much more connected as a unit, as a group. Mm-hmm. And it was great to see that starting lineup put together because that's the one that everyone's sort of been, wanting to see when you think about when the initial trade happened. That was the first starting five that most Celtics fans envisioned. You had the other group of fans that were like, well, no, Al has to start. He's never, he's not used to starting. But I think after seeing tonight, I mean, you wonder if Jrue will come off the bench just to sort of help the second unit a bit, just so he can get better, get acclimated with the system, or if Joe Mazzulla is going to stick with this. I would love to see him stick with this, honestly. I like the idea of Al coming off the bench, and of course, marquee matchups and certain particular teams, you're going to see him in the starting five. I don't think Al is going to be coming off the bench all season long, but for the majority of the season, I don't think it would be a bad thing. I mean, in this one, he scored 5 points, right off the bat. Very vocal defensively, which is obviously something the second unit is going to need. But you look at what he means, to the offense. I thought you were turning me off there, Jimmy. You think about what he means to the offense and going up against, secondary opponents, the other team's second units, and I think he would fare well. And of course, if he's failing it, and if he's having one of those nights, you're going to see Al finish the game. It's not. I don't think Mazzulla, and he's been very vocal about this. He's not going to be, so particular about the starting five, and like he said, it's all about how they finish. However, you wonder what the majority of the time it's going to be, and I think what we saw tonight should be the case.
Listen, I mean, Al Horford was a plus 17 off the bench tonight, and again, we're not going to get too hung up on the statistics because again, it was against the JV Knicks, but if Al Horford can get past the fact that he's not starting. And honestly, he's a leader. He's a veteran. He's somebody who's been in the league for a long time. He must know that this day is going to come at some point in his career. When you get up there in age and you play, and credit to him for being at this age and still being extremely effective in the NBA, it makes sense to come off the bench in a lot of cases. You want to prolong yourself for the season. Al Horford's had a number of injuries over the course of his career. Lower body, knees, and whatnot. The older you get, the less you want to be banging down low. We know that he's not anymore. He's basically a three-point shooter. I saw the stat tonight on the broadcast, 15 free throws. I forgot how little he got to the free throw line last year. He's just not that player anymore. But they need him. Make no mistake about it. Just because he's not starting doesn't mean he's not important. They need to make sure that this guy is good to go for the playoffs. We know how thin this team is. And Al Horford coming off the bench at age 36 or whatever he is now seems to make more sense. On the other side, you just traded for one of the best, if not the best, defenders in the NBA, right? Perimeter defender, certainly. So you got to figure out a way to get Jrue Holiday as many minutes as you possibly can. That's why you just traded for him, and he didn't come cheap. So I think tonight's look was one that I was waiting to see for a while, and one that I think we will see. Now, I do agree with you, Josue. It will be matchup based in some instances, and you might see Al Horford come, start a game depending on who they're playing, and you might see him sit a game depending on if it's the back-to-back, and maybe he plays less minutes. Who really knows, right? But bottom line is they need to figure out a way to manage his minutes so that he can play as many games as possible in the regular season that he's needed for and be healthy for the playoffs. We know that it's a long season, and we know that by game 60, these guys are already looking at the playoffs. So it's not necessary for him to go 30 minutes a game for 82 games, but it is necessary for him to be healthy going into game one of the NBA postseason.
Right, exactly, Jimmy. And we're talking about what anticipated, right? A third consecutive deep playoff run, and I think the Celtics are obviously in position to do that. But you want to preserve Al Horford as much as possible, and I feel like it's getting worse around me, by the way. But trying to ignore it.
It's like a couple explosions.
Yeah, man, it feels like these guys really want to go home. I feel like they're getting better at this, by the way. The last home game, they got this thing ready quickly. I overlooked the fact that there's not going to be a game played here until next Friday, or at least a Celtics game, rather.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, look, I mean, yeah, you mentioned Jrue Holiday, but the reason why you're really able to do this if you're Joe Mazzulla is because what Kristaps Porzingis means to this offense, man. Like, and what he does on the defensive side as well. But, like, I can't remember the last time they had a guy like this. I mean, you look at what he's doing, these pick and pops by the free throw line, the mid range. I mean, these are just jumpers that the Celtics just didn't have guys to hit those type of shots. It was either the three or you're going into the lane. But for Kristaps Porzingis, it seems like essentially no matter where he's catching that ball between 10 to 15 feet, it's just money, man. It almost reminds me of like when KG first came. Do you remember that, Jimmy? Like
oh yeah,
those jump shots, top of the key. You know, look at the box score, man. It's very reminiscent of that. You know, 13, 14 attempts, 6 for 7. You know what I mean? Like those. Yeah. Those like that type of production and having a guy who can knock down those shots, it's just it's devastating for opposing teams. You know, when you have to worry about Tatum all night, and you have to worry about Jaylen. You know, guys that slash and get to the rim, and then now to put Porzingis in the middle of that's only going to make things easier for those guys. And it's so easy to say that on paper, but seeing it the way we have, you know, even though it's been a small sample size, you're seeing a big difference of what the Celtics' offense is able to do.
Yeah, if you're a Celtics fan, you just can't help but watch the game and just kind of smile when you see him do something nice, right? Because we talked about it last show. He's kind of been a forgotten player in the NBA over the last few years, right? Just not part of the NBA discussion, really. You know, and he's been banged up, but you know, obviously last year not so much, and that's kind of what put him back on the radar a little bit. And I think that's definitely played a part in the Celtics' interest in him. And now watching him, you see why he can be so effective when he is on the court. You see the many different ways that he can score on offense, whether it's low post, just sticks the three right off the bat in the beginning of this game, hits a couple of threes or a couple of big shots right off the bat. And you're like, okay, like this guy is smooth out there. He's clicking on all cylinders. You already mentioned it, what he can do for you on both ends and how he can just score in multiple ways. I do see the KG comparison. Obviously, he's not KG. Everybody just slow down. I don't want everyone to don't clip that and say that I'm saying we got the next KG here. But there are some similarities to his style that he plays and his ability to score. I mean, really score in more ways than KG. And when you talk about expanding to that 3-point line, because KG never had a 3-point shot. He didn't need one. KG's low post game was obviously more polished, but Porzingis is one of the best low post scorers in the NBA right now as well.
It's just so crisp, Jimmy, man. Like I guess we don't. I mean, when you look back on it, yeah, the Celtics, we see Kristaps Porzingis a couple of times a year here and there, but like last year, I mean, it was easy to sleep on his game, right? I mean, how many Washington Wizards games did you watch?
He was always hype, right? It was always just the hype about him that, you know?
It was the hype, and it was the failed experiment in Dallas. Let's face it. I mean, that sort of hurt his reputation in the sense of, oh, maybe this guy isn't as dominant as we thought he was going to be, or maybe he's not going. Yeah. Maybe he's not a perennial all-star, you know, but I think
started to hear that he was a bad teammate, you know, all that stuff started to sneak out, which happens when you're not playing well and things aren't going well.
Right, and that stuff started in New York too, especially after his rookie season. I mean, people were sort of wondering what kind of guy he was going to be, his personality. You know, he was very disappointed with the way things went in New York, and he expressed that. And 19, 20 years old. I mean, a lot of people were wondering, oh, wait a minute.
It's a tough place for him to get drafted.
Maybe this guy's immature, right? And then you fast forward to today, and he's talking about like, oh yeah, man, that kid who played for the Knicks once upon a time, man, like I was immature. I was ignorant, to use his word, right? Ignorant. And I just always envision this opportunity for Porzingis is so important for him because he realizes, like, man, like I didn't see this coming at all. You know, like from going to a situation in Washington and people questioning if he's a perennial all-star. I think this is so like ideal for him and where he's at in his career. And I can't envision another third option across the NBA that could flourish better than what we're seeing right now with Porzingis.
No, I can't either. And it seems to me like he's already on the same page as some of the guards out there. We saw Pritchard with a little lob to him, and it seems like him and Holiday have a good
No,
thing going too.
he tossed that with the left. That's impressive too, man.
That is
Pritchard
impressive.
too. Pritchard has impressed me with how he's able to get into the teeth of the defense and hold his own. He's still gonna have to work on it, right? He's still have to work on his decision making and his playmaking abilities, but he's shown a lot of improvement in that regard. Obviously, his 3-point shot we know is improved. That's a big part of his game. Those like damn near Steph Curry island type of shots. Like that's in his bag now. We know that, but I want to see if he can develop more as a playmaker and getting other guys involved. I mean, that second unit is gonna need it for sure.
Yeah, what did you think of the second unit tonight? We already touched on Horford kind of coming off the bench there, and we've mentioned Pritchard here, but Hauser with a good game as well. Coming on.
Yeah, man, Hauser. Yeah, that's encouraging because they're gonna need it, man. Those like 7, 8, 9 spots are so important. I mean, we know
they're everything, right?
So much has been made about
they're wide open.
6. Right, they're wide open, and you wonder if that's going to change, right? If whoever grabs those spots the first couple of months is going to stay in those spots. If it's Hauser or if it's Pritchard, does Cornette have a chance to get in there? But then, overall,
you save that for Bobby.
I know, right, man. I mentioned it before he did. That's a first. When was the last time that happened?
Yeah.
You wonder if they can hold their own because if not, they're going to have to lean on someone like Jrue Holiday. We talked about what Al can do, but you want to preserve him. I think, especially what we saw today, where Jrue wasn't looking to get as many points as possible. Jrue wasn't looking to say, okay, now it's my turn. He was looking for the other guys. He was reading what the defense was giving him, and he took his shots and his opportunities, but he was very patient. And I think that's going to go a really long way if you're able to mesh him with the second unit and kind of help get those guys going. The Sam Houses, the Peyton Pritchard, and whoever that third or fourth, guy off the bench is going to be.
How's there a guy that you think that we can trust?
I think so. You just wonder how he's going to fare against teams, defensively, right? His transition defense has always been something he's had to work on, but he's improved it, a lot. But you wonder how the team defense is going to look this year, because a lot has been made in training camp. How in years past it was a lot of individual work, but this year there's a lot more teamwork, a lot more team concepts, and especially bringing in someone like Charles Lee from the Milwaukee Bucks, who was a big part of one of the better defenses in the NBA for the last 2-3 years, right? So you wonder how this team responds to that, but specifically the second unit. I'm not worried about the starters. Those guys will figure it out. But again, like I said at the beginning of the show, don't read too much into what they did here against this JV Knicks team. However, they're on to something. I mean, this is going to be a really good team, obviously, but I just wouldn't say like, don't get too excited. Pump the brakes. I don't think this team's going to go out and win 12 in a row to start the season, but they'll be a pretty good team.
Well, you know what, though? If they win 9 out of 12 or 10 out of 12, I don't think anyone will be too surprised. I mean, this roster is built to win. And when we do our season preview show next week or whenever we do it, I'm sure there's going to be a few of us in here that have them to win the whole thing, because that's what this is all about. Brad Stevens was very aggressive this offseason, as he needed to be. When the season ended last year, we all sat there and said, so what are they going to do? Just run it back? You can't run this back, right? And to his credit, to Brad's credit, he made a lot of tough decisions all the way through the offseason, right into camp, right? Literally right
to the
into
last
camp.
day, literally.
To the very last day.
You're
so
right.
You can't criticize Brad for sitting on his thumb this offseason, sitting on his hands, whatever the saying is. And
I think people say both. I don't know. I don't know which one is the official saying, but yeah, people say both. I swear.
Yeah, he didn't do either of those things. So we got to give him credit for that. There are some question marks, of course. Like size is going to be something that we talk about throughout the year. But again, adding Porzingis, we'll see how that helps with things. And I think adding Holiday. I think Holiday obviously doesn't make you big in the paint, but he's a big guard and he plays big and he prevents guys from getting to the basket and getting to the paint and making things a little bit more difficult to do in the paint area. So I think that's, playing to your strengths in another way, right? So just playing that defensive intensity on the perimeter, playing it outside of the paint. And on the offensive end, pushing it, right? Not being a slow team, not being a team that just walks up the court like we've seen them do in past years. I think Holiday's going to push them. I think Pritchard's going to push them. White's going to push them. I think you're going to see a lot more run and gun style of offense this year. And I think they need to, because when they were maximizing those possessions and they were playing up-tempo, they were scoring. And they were also playing defense. And and the offense was coming from the defense, right? It
Right.
was a result of that. Now,
that's what the 2022 team did, right? It was a lot of the times it was the defense leading to offense, and it would trigger the offense. Whereas last year, you saw a lot of the times where the offense would get stagnant at times, right?
They were relying too much on
the three-point shot wasn't falling. Exactly. When the three-point shot wasn't falling and everyone's sort of standing around, or it's, Tatum goes and then Jaylen goes and they both take turns, and you didn't see that continuity between the frustration of a slow offensive night and just the lack of stops, right? Like, I remember this team would give up. They'd be on the wrong ends of 14-2 runs and
so hot and
catch
cold.
up, so hot and cold, and then they're getting into desperation mode, and we saw that happen time and time again. Having someone like Jrue Holiday prevents that from happening, I feel like, right? I mean, he's never gonna allow the offense to get stagnant. He's going to create stops. He's going to hold teammates accountable, and they're all here for it, right? Because they've been through losing the NBA Finals. They've been through, coming back from being down 3-0 just to lose Game 7, and all of that is something I think Brad Stevens, took to heart or remembered, right, going into this offseason. Mm-hmm. And if it cost him a Robert Williams, he was going to do that deal because he's like, man, we need someone like this to help facilitate, to help calm things down, to give this team another defensive weapon, similar to Marcus Smart, or if not better.
Yeah, and the other thing is, Jrue Holiday wasn't available until he was. You weren't getting Jrue Holiday from the Bucks,
right? And that's another thing too, right? Brad wasn't like, man, as soon as the Bucks get Lillard, I'm gonna call about Jrue. No, everyone's looking at Miami. Everyone was looking at, name the other 3 or 4 teams that was reportedly interested in Damian Lillard.
Yep.
And we never heard the Milwaukee Bucks as one of those teams.
Never once. And I think that goes to show you that Brad knows the guys that he likes, right?
And he can think on his he can make decisions on his toes, damn it.
When a player like that becomes available, I always say it's the GM's job to pick up the phone and kick the tires on what the asking price is. Exactly. How can this player help us? What's it going to cost us? Are we okay with, parting with player A and player B for a player of Holiday's caliber? They were. I think, like any big trade, it takes a little bit of time to digest and to sort of, understand. I think a lot of Celtics fans are, thank you for muting yourself there. I think a lot of Celtics fans are going to understand it as we get into this season. They're going to see what Jrue Holiday's value is. And I think Jrue Holiday, I think a lot of people would say he is an underrated player on a national scale. But if you know basketball and if you follow basketball, you know his worth. Jrue Holiday's not a household name for a casual basketball fan, but I think he will become a lot more popular being in a market like Boston, on a team that gets a lot more publicity. Even though the Bucks have been a good team for years, they just don't have the same, they don't have that same clout that Boston has. And I think Jrue Holiday will become a more popular player on the I guess, main stage. Now, Josue, I know we're not going to get hung up on the score tonight, but I do think obviously Joe made a point to treat this like a regular season game in the way that he played guys for a while, right? It didn't matter that the Knicks had their scrubs out there, quote, not to be harsh, but it didn't matter. Like, they went deep into the second half with their starters. They played rotations that I think obviously we're going to see throughout the regular season. This is probably, assuming that they rest some guys on Thursday, this is your last real look at this team prior to, opening night. You confident in what you saw tonight, and you feel like these guys are ready to go here?
I am, Jimmy. I just think a lot is going to be made about that second unit. I think it's going to be a lot of the discussions throughout the first 2-3 weeks of this regular season. I don't think Joe Mazzulla will stick with the starting 5, a permanent starting 5 throughout that span. So that's going to a lot of hey Joe, this guy instead of that guy, and it might drive him crazy. You wonder how he's going to gauge. How we'll be able to gauge his responses or his attitude, throughout those questions. But I just think that it's important for him to figure out what's best for this team, right? What's the best combination? And I just don't think he's so hung up on what the starting, 5, 6, 7 minutes of a game looks like, right? But I do think he's going to be hung up on people's roles and what's expected out of guys, right? I mean, you sort of have to align that. For any team, right? So that guys know what to expect. I don't think anyone would agree with, putting a different starting 5 every single night. However, throughout those first 2-3 weeks, you're going to figure out exactly what works best.
Mm-hmm.
And you wonder,
I think I lost Josue. Looks like I'm going to be going solo here for a minute or two. If we can get Josue back on, I'll shoot him a text. Lost you, Josue. What I think Josue was talking about, and I wasn't paying a lot of attention because I was texting the group, talking about Joe Mazzulla and the way in which he's going to coach at the beginning of the year. I think there's going to be a lot of people with eyes on Mazzulla. We talk about the bench unit. We talk about who's going to be in the starting lineup. Nobody took more heat at the end of the regular season than Joe Mazzulla did, whether it was because of the Celtics, the way that he coached during the games, whether it was the fact that they lost to the Miami Heat in the playoffs, whether it was the fact that he came in as an interim coach and was named head coach. A lot of people felt like maybe that the Celtics jumped the gun there. And as soon as they did, name him head coach, I think you were on one side or the other, whether it was the great move, lock him up now because this guy is a keeper, or they had no reason to do that. They should have waited. And then obviously the way the playoffs ended up, there were a lot of people wondering if that was the right idea. Celtics go ahead and they get Sam Cassell. They go ahead and they shore up the Josue, I think might be coming back on. They shore up their coaching staff around Joe, which I think is fair. I think they needed to do that. And I think they owed Joe that if they were going to keep him. One thing that a lot of Celtics fans or people fail to recognize is there wasn't much of a staff around Mazzulla. So we can criticize Mazzulla all we want, but he lost coaches throughout the year. And we saw as soon as the regular season ended and as soon as Ime signed in Houston, that his guys went to Houston right after him. So they were never Mazzulla's guys. So I do wonder if that was an issue at all during the regular season or during the playoffs, that there wasn't really much of a continuity there on the coaching side of things. I don't know that to be true, but I did find it interesting that they all bolted to Houston after. And Mazzulla was pretty much on an island. So I think this is a huge year for him. He has a team that's a championship caliber team, and he's got a staff around him that is proven staff. Josue, you ready? Can I let you back in? He's got a staff that's proven to be able to, whether it's in Milwaukee or whether it's in Philly or wherever.
Yeah, but you can't overlook that Milwaukee, man. That Milwaukee, intel, if you will, right?
Right. Did you hear me talking about Mazzulla for a minute?
More so his coaching staff, the last 20 seconds.
Yeah, I was basically, when you went away, I kind of transitioned to, you were talking about how Mazzulla was going to handle the first few weeks, and I'm talking about how this is a big year for Mazzulla. Obviously, the way it ended in his first season, he had a lot of doubters, a lot of people who didn't want him back this year. He's got a full staff around him now, and he's got a team that's a championship caliber team. And I think there's going to be a lot of eyes on him, seeing how he can handle it all.
Yeah, I think all of that is relative when you think about how things went down last year. I mean, we obviously everyone knows it's not ideal to go into that head coaching job the way he did under those terms. But I think one thing that we all overlooked until the end of the season last year was the fact that his coaching staff, he didn't pick any of those guys, right? Sure, he was with them the season prior when he was in the second row.
They weren't his guys.
Right, exactly.
They all left as soon as the season ended.
Exactly. This is different between being used to working with guys as one of those assistant coaches that's in the second row and being the head coach who has to work with those guys, but you didn't handpick the guys that you want to work with, right? Now, and I know that maybe Mazzulla didn't, call up Brad and say, hey, I want Sam Cassell. Hey, I want this guy. But the organization was able to respond in a way that's going to help Mazzulla with some of the most experienced assistant coaches you're going to find in the NBA, some of the most revered assistant coaches you'll ever find. And I don't think Mazzulla's ever going to, say, oh, I don't want to work with these guys. No, he's a basketball geek, if you will, right? He loves that. He loves concepts and he loves new ideas and he loves having that type of experience around him. He's a student of the game. So I think him and Brad Stevens were on the same page all off season about that part, especially.
Mm-hmm. Now Mazzulla's got to manage. He's got to manage four superstars now too. Bringing in new players, Porzingis, Holiday, how they're going to fit with Tatum and Brown. And that's not easy. I mean, Holiday just got here. People are talking about, he might come off the bench because he's not acclimated yet, blah, 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 and all that stuff. I don't know how true that might be.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that. That's a great excuse for Joe Mazzulla to say. But if you ask me, man, I just think this second unit it needs help. It needs help. I don't know if this is going to be strong enough. We have to wait and see. It's still obviously very, very early.
Right.
But putting someone like that in the mix, it makes things a whole lot easier and helps guys like Pritchard and Hauser.
Well, wouldn't it in that sense, Josue, wouldn't it make more sense to put a guy who has more experience with these players, like Derek White in the second unit?
I mean, I feel like Holiday has more experience than White, and
he has more experience than White, but he doesn't have more experience with these teammates.
Right. That's true. That's a good point. I just wonder, in terms of working with White off the ball, right? Like, do you maximize his potential that way and putting him in that lineup with the starters? Is that the way to go, especially to start the regular season?
You're saying what now? You're saying to start who?
No, I'm saying if you have Jrue as a starter, you wonder if you want to start with White just those first couple of weeks, just to kind of help the second unit with a veteran like Jrue Holiday, who, depending on the matchup, right, he doesn't necessarily have to, it doesn't mean he's not going to end the game. However, just to sort of help those guys find their way, so to speak, it wouldn't be a bad way to start the season.
Right.
But
all right, before we get,
I'm more into the put Jrue and White in that backcourt, man. When it's all said and done, once the second unit finds its way, I want that to be the lineup that most people think about when they think of the Celtics. You know what I mean? Mid-season, that'll be the go-to lineup. And then depending on matchups, right? It just has to be. I feel like that's just too strong of a lineup to just say oh, that's our special one that we go to every now and then.
No, I mean, listen, they didn't trade Jrue Holiday for him to be a bit player and come in certain situations.
Exactly.
This is a superstar NBA player. It doesn't make any sense to me that why they would have him coming off the bench unless it was, hey, I'm not ready. I don't know the plays. I don't know the sets. But it's not that. At the end of the day, his specialty is defense. You don't need to know jack about the plays to play hard defense. You just need to know how to keep the motor going out there, play hard basketball, create turnovers, and get guys going on the other end. And he can certainly do that. Before we get into the next topic, I want to just tell everybody about FanDuel. FanDuel.com/Boston is the place to be if you are going to be watching sports this fall, which I'm sure we all will be with the Celtics starting up next week. We're going to be watching every game. And if you want to get in on the action and maybe make a couple bucks, hopefully, you want to go over to FanDuel.com/Boston and get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's with one $5 bet. Again, that's FanDuel.com/Boston. These are our good sponsor of ours, guys, and we really do appreciate the support. This is a free podcast and free YouTube show for all of you guys wondering, and the reasons why is because of great sponsors like these guys. So if you guys feel like dipping your toes in the gambling pool, FanDuel is a great place to be. They have a lot of fun, different bets too. Tons of prop bets. You don't have to, if you think I have no idea what's going to happen in this game tonight, I don't want to bet it. That's fine. I went crazy on no dunks are going to happen in the first 4 minutes of the game. I went absolutely crazy on that bet last year. And what it does is it just makes the first 4 minutes of the game electric, because you're just screaming at your TV, don't dunk it, don't dunk it. So that's just me. You guys can find hundreds and thousands of bets to choose from. But we do love FanDuel.com and we appreciate them. Our other friends.
Everyone loves it.
Yeah. Our other friends, Josue, are Odds Are. Odds Are, if I can get it on here. Sorry, I'm trying to figure it out. Odds Are. oddsr.com/PressPass. Get a 30-day free trial. Go to oddsr.com/PressPass and download the app. So these two sponsors kind of go hand in hand. They're not affiliated with each other, but Odds Are is going to help you win your bets. So what Odds Are is not a place where you go to place bets. It's a place you go where you want to learn how to win bets. They do all the boring math for you. They do everything that you don't want to do. You just want to go on there and have some fun and not worry about, is this a stupid bet or not, right? Because most cases it probably is, but Odds Are is there to kind of help you through that. So, they navigate the betting field with confidence. You go to oddsr.com/. Oh, it's /Celtics. I don't know why this one says press pass. I got the wrong one. Sorry, guys. That's on me. I'm gonna get in trouble for that probably. But there's so many.
Okay, Jimmy. Don't be so hard. Don't be so hard on yourself, man.
There's no rhyme or reason to where all of our lowers are and stuff, and it's like impossible to see. So it's actually oddsr.com/Celtics.
You sounded so disappointed. I'm sorry, guys.
You probably can go to press pass for somebody else is gonna get the credit. So go to oddsr.com/Celtics. 30-day free trial. Elevate your game and join the smart betting revolution.
It's like Cliff Notes for gamblers.
It's a great way to put it. Cliff Notes for gamblers. And okay, Josue, next. We haven't even talked about the two probably obviously biggest pieces of the Celtics team based on history here, and that's Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. We mentioned Tatum off the top, 28 points tonight. Let me pull up his stat line here. 28 points, 9 of 15 from the field, 5 of 8 from 3. 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals in 30 minutes. A quiet 28 is what Scal called it.
Light work, yeah, it was.
What do you think? What do you think from him tonight?
Is
he ready to go? Did he put on some? What the heck did I just? I don't know what's going on over there.
Don't do that again.
Give me the thumb.
I got it.
Okay, yeah. Give me the thumbs up if you're not if they're not blowing up an hot air balloon behind you.
You just see me like fly away. What would you
do? Is he ready for the season? I heard that he put on some muscle.
Yeah. I mean, listen, it's not the same if you're asking me. The muscle I feel like we saw during the offseason. So we already knew about that. But yeah, I feel like he was just sort of finding his spots, kind of going through the motions, especially in that second half. He did go off right before halftime. Where he had 20 at that point, and I just see him as someone who's just sort of going through it, being doing what he's supposed to do to help guys along, and he's just ready to start playing the real ones, man. It seems like.
And what about our friend Jaylen Brown, Mr. 300 million going into
Jaylen?
How do you think he looked tonight? I would say that he probably didn't look as good as the rest of the team. And
he didn't look as good as Tatum.
That's not us trying to hate on Jaylen Brown. Everybody.
No, it's
that's
not.
Just watching the game here.
It's not, because if you watch the game, you would agree. He found spots to be effective on offense, but I felt like he was sort of out of sync with the rest of the guys, to be honest with you. He didn't hurt them, right? And I felt like on defense, you started to see like he was gradually just like this, not as interested as he was in that first quarter. It felt like, but I guess you can chalk it up to he's ready for the regular season to start, and you sort of just seeing everyone find their footing on the team. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't a whole lot to he wasn't that impressive.
Everybody should be very happy that John Zannis is not on tonight's show.
No, he would be all over Jaylen.
He would have led with Jaylen Brown tonight off the top. People would have been screaming in the chat, but he wouldn't have been all wrong. And again, we're not going to make too much out of this because it's just a preseason game and off night, whatever. 17 points for Brown tonight, 6 of 15. Looked fairly invisible. He did the thing where he tried to dribble through 4 people and then turned it over, which we saw many, many times last year. He doesn't need to do that anymore.
Oh, he doesn't.
Doesn't need to do that anymore. There's enough health on this team where you actually don't need to do it all. But there is the $300 million contract that he just signed. There is probably a different sort of, Jaylen Brown's always been a guy that's thrived off of people doubting him and negativity, and whether or not you think that's the right way to go about it or not, it's worked for him, right? He's always kind of had that me against the world mentality. It feels, even when it comes to the fans here in Boston. I mean, how many times has he referenced being booed on draft night, So now it's kind of hard to use that as motivation, right? I mean, you were just basically validated, right, when you signed that contract. So now you have to find a different way to motivate yourself. And I'm sure he'll figure that out. But I do wonder if that is going to complicate matters for him at all. Just that idea that, okay, he got paid. Now he has to live up to it. Before it was proving that, he was one of the best players in the NBA. And now it's proving that he deserves the money that he got. And is that something that we're going to see affect his play? Is there going to be points where he tries to do too much and maybe does? I saw in the chat, Jaylen Brown wasn't playing team basketball tonight. I mean, you were there. Maybe you saw a little bit of that as well. Is that something to be concerned about?
I wouldn't be concerned about it because he's a professional. I don't think Jaylen's the type of guy that would sort of isolate himself completely from the team, but I do think it's something that we'll be talking about a lot. when other guys are going and the offense is flowing, and if he doesn't get his touches as much, you wonder if that's going to affect him emotionally or how he's going to respond to that. But I do think that he's at a stage of his career where he's professional enough to not pout or say, hey, I need my touches too, and I think being validated with this contract helps in that regard, right? But you wonder how he's going to respond to those games where he just doesn't have it, right? Or what's he going to be on the defensive side? Because I always see Jaylen as someone who his offense inspires his defense, right? Like I feel like when he's really on offense, he wants to guard the best player on the opposing team. I mean, most of the time that's his assignment, but I feel like he's more locked in.
Does he have to now?
So the Celtics have to. I mean, he should want to, and I think if you're Tatum or Jrue Holiday,
you got Holiday now.
Right, but you want him to be involved. You don't want it to be like one of those things where it's like, oh, tonight's not a Jaylen night, let's just move on. No, like you want to get his offense going, but this team doesn't have to stop everything and say, okay, ISO Jaylen. You know what I mean? Like that's the luxury of having so many offensive weapons. Whereas a couple of years ago that wasn't always the case. If Tatum didn't have it was like, okay, Jaylen has to do something. That's not the case anymore with this team. And if you're Jaylen, you're not going to take that harshly. You're not going to take that some type of way because this team has already invested in you. They've already shown you what you mean to them, and obviously he's an important part of what this team's trying to do.
Yeah, I think this comment is pretty spot on, and that's one of the reasons why they went and got Holiday, because Holiday can be a playmaker. He's the guy that's going to be handling the ball and getting guys into sets. And again, Jaylen Brown doesn't have to do what he did tonight, which is try to do too much in certain situations.
Right, exactly.
But that's an adjustment. That's an adjustment that he's going to have to.
I don't think the contract is something that is going to make him think like, man, you're giving me all this money, I want this and I want that. No, I think the contract is it's the validation that he needed, or that he was looking for, I should say. So I think that's a big that's a good thing to have on your side if you're Jaylen going into the season, that you don't have to go out there being like, oh, I have to prove myself. No, he's already done that.
He doesn't have to prove himself in that sense, but does he have to prove that he's worth it? Does he have to prove that he is still valuable to this team and that he's worth that money? That he's worth that much in salary cap?
I mean, Jimmy, you and I both know that a lot of people out there don't think he's worth it before he even signed it, right?
Right. So that's going to be like
so he
the new argument, right?
Yeah, right. But if you're Jaylen, you can't let that affect you, man. It's like, man, you got $300 million coming in your way in the next 4 or 5 years. Like, the hell with all the noise, right? and you've been an all-star, for a handful of years now. So, I mean, there's a slight possibility. But if I was a betting man, I really don't think it impacts or makes him think that he's not getting his own fair share. You know what I mean? Of offensive touches.
I hear you, and I hear that beeping too. So thank you for muting it. Okay, so. We've hit on pretty much. I think is there any what else from this game? So we got Bobby Manny joining us shortly. I just texted Bobby, and he actually did get Jaylen Brown. He said they got Brown in a small scrum. So maybe he's got some intel for us there that he can share with us from his conversation with Jaylen Brown. I have no idea what that conversation went like, but Bobby will be joining us momentarily. Josue, what else did you get into? Did you get any post game at all tonight, or did you go straight to the show?
The show, man, because otherwise.
Yeah. I wasn't sure.
I hopped straight on the show because
I haven't got it yet.
Yeah. But.
You there? Josue, you there? No, you're mute right now, but I think I heard you before.
So wait, am I mute or not mute?
Now you're not muted.
Okay. Damn.
You were broken up.
Oh, okay. No, I was saying, I just set up here because if I went back there and came back, it would take us a while to get on here. It's Bobby's. There's a lot going on back there, I guess.
Anything pregame that we may have missed that was important? Did you get on did you see Thibs at all or anything like that? You talked to anybody pregame anywhere?
Yeah, Thibs and Mazzulla. I mean, they kept it relatively short. Mazzulla announcing the starting five, and Thibs talking about how many guys weren't playing. So that's why I was like, man, this thing's going to be a landslide. But you look at, what was it? The Jeff Van Gundy signing. He was asked about that. And Thibs saying that any type of job where a team employs someone like Van Gundy, you're going to get a lot of experience. You're going to get a lot of help in that regard. So he had nothing but great things to say about Van Gundy joining the Celtics organization.
And what do you think about that? Because that kind of came out of nowhere, right?
It did kind of come out of nowhere, and it's kind of funny because Celtics.com actually had it like days before, like everyone was like, "Oh, this is happening," and Celtics.com was like, "Dude, we said that already." But I love it. I do. I mean, the more experienced guys, the better. I don't think it's something that's, I don't think it's something he'll take lightly. He's someone that obviously has a whole lot of experience as a head coach for his days in the Knicks, watching the game the way he has as a broadcaster, color commentator. So I love it, man. Guys like him, Sam Cassell, man, they got stories for, from guys who have been in the league, as a player or as a coach or as a broadcaster for the past 25 to 30 years, essentially, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the great basketball minds. His broadcasts were very interesting to listen to, and he sees the game from a different perspective, obviously. And I think, again, we mentioned it earlier. Missoula's getting all the help he can get right now.
This guy's cracking me up. Sorry, Jimmy, real quick. This guy says, y'all sound like Beats, bro. Brett. He's like, are you guys Celtics fans? No, man, we're not. We're
Wait, what did he say?
We're journalists. We're broadcasters.
Is this on the YouTube?
Yes.
Chat?
Yeah.
Oh, here we go.
You found it? Yeah, put it up here. This is what cracks me up, man. We're not Celtics fans in our parents' basement talking about how much we love our team. Like, come on, man.
I'm in the attic. I'm in the attic right now.
Yeah, that's right.
Y'all sound like brats, man. Bro.
We're
Are y'all Celtics fan? JB deserves every single penny, brah. He makes the whole organization look good in his culture. Stop playing. Okay, so first of all, welcome to the show. This is somebody who's probably never watched one of our shows before, so welcome. Jaylen Brown, we know everything that Jaylen Brown brings to the organization and to the Celtics. We've watched many, 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 many games over his career, and we understand why he was up for $300 million, and we understand why the Celtics signed him for that number. Because if they didn't, there'd be a completely different story. And the way that the CBA works, you make that signing. Whether or not you play out for that entire contract is irregardless. You make that signing. We know what Jaylen Brown does well. We know what Jaylen Brown doesn't do well. And when those things happen, we talk about them. So if you don't like it when Jaylen Brown has a bad game, if you don't like hearing about it, then don't watch the show. If you don't like it when Jason Tatum has a bad game, if you don't like talking about it, don't watch the show. Because we're not going to sit here with our green pom-poms and our green goggles, and we're not going to sit here with our Celtics helmets on every single game and talk about how good they played if they suck.
Not every game.
Simple as that. We'll crack a few jokes at their expense. We'll break down the highlights. We'll break down, what went right, what went wrong. But if you're looking for green pom-poms, I guarantee you there's a podcast for you. But it's not this one. Not all the time. Not until Bobby Manning gets here anyways.
Yo, the Jaylen stands are relentless, man. You can't tell them anything. Like, Jaylen is like their god. Like, they love that guy. Like, jeez.
Listen, everybody's fair game. Nobody is on a pedestal that cannot be reached on this show.
They make it sound like he didn't have like 8 or 9 turnovers in the Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals or something. Like, jeez.
Yeah. So, anyways, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. He got a comment up there. So now maybe he's got the bug. He'll be back now. He'll definitely be back to see what we talk about next. But that's a little quick synopsis of what our show is all about. And we are going to do a season preview. I heard next week. So we'll have something coming to you guys next week. We have the last preseason game, which means really nothing, but we'll do some sort of preview. We'll make our predictions. We'll probably make some bold predictions. Josue, start working on your bold predictions.
Hopefully they're bold enough. I feel like John. Actually, no. Last year I think he wasn't mad at me. I think he was mad at you guys. So you guys didn't have your prediction.
No, he was mad at you guys. I had like preposterous predictions.
Did I flip that around? Maybe that's what it was.
Yeah, I think he was mad at you, and I think Sherrod had some pretty easy ones too. But mine was that literally Derek White would be forgotten like on a road trip somewhere because like he was just so like not important.
What was that thing? I picked like I think it was like 3 out of 5 or something like that happened, but it was like Romeo's going to get traded. It was one of them or something.
Yeah, that you were right on that. Yes, you were right on that. And I was kind of right when Derek White didn't make the plane back with the team. It wasn't because they forgot him, but remember he got like poked in the eye or something happened to him.
Oh, that's right. Back. Yeah.
Technically, they did leave him behind on the plane, but not quite forgotten.
He was an Iron Man last year, man. Remember, he went through so much like stuff that didn't keep him out for a game, right? Remember?
Yeah,
like,
he played all 82.
All 82.
82. I mean,
I thought he had a concussion.
Nobody had a bigger, like, 180-degree turnaround than Derek White did last year. If you're talking about the Boston Celtics, I mean, that was a guy that when he got traded to the team, the way his first season ended, people were talking about him like the Celtics couldn't trade him if they wanted to, right? John Zannis said that the Celtics wouldn't be able to get a second round pick for him. No, he didn't say that, but he talked like that was the case. And he'll be the first to admit that Derek White has completely transformed himself over the last season and has now become an integral part of this team. Now, another thing that Brad Stevens has to figure out is if he's going to get an extension signed with Derek White before the season starts. He's got a couple of days left to do that. It doesn't sound like I was just listening to the broadcast, and it doesn't sound like it's something that Derek White is stressing over, saying all the right things about it. But Josue, have you any idea on which way that might go, and how important is it for the Celtics to lock this guy up, whether it's now or whether it's next offseason?
I think if they were able to lock him in this year, that would be huge because you would save a lot of money. If you ask me, man, Derek White, if he doesn't duplicate what he did last year, he might even. I mean, okay, I'll say this: he's most likely going to duplicate what he did last year, and that alone is going to double his dollars. If you ask me, right? I mean, making the all defensive second team last year, leading the league in blocks for guards. How he's able to complement Tatum and Brown. I mean, everyone's watching that, right? I mean, it's not when you do it at this level, when you go to the Eastern Conference Finals. I mean, that's how you get the bag, right? From a team that's like, wait a minute, let's save some money and let's give that guy a contract. So if you're the Celtics, you want to reach an agreement as soon as possible. But if you're Derek White, man, you holding off.
Oh, you're putting your businessman hat on for Derek White?
If I'm White's agent, I'm like, bro, we'll talk to those guys next year because he's got 2 years, right? He's got that option, or he's got he's not entering his final year of the contract. So
right.
Why not? I mean, why would you sell yourself short in that regard, right? If I'm his agent, man, I'm looking at it. They're ready. They've locked in Pritchard long term. Jrue Holiday's got another year on the books. I mean, everything is in your favor at the negotiating table right now.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think Derek White has shown that he can play here. Obviously, it sounds like he loves it here and wants to play here, saying all the right things, embracing his role. And I mean, I think obviously there's a great fit for him on this team. And again, the storyline around him has just done a complete 180 than it did a year ago at this time. I think we're getting Bobby setting up here. I'll wait for him to give me the thumbs up. And he does. Drum roll, please, for Bobby Manning joining the show. What's up, Bobby? How we doing? And we can't hear Bobby.
So Bobby's where all this stuff is going, and I'm where they're taking it. Yeah, all that stuff, all that noise. Yeah.
Bobby, check your mic.
Got me. Hello.
Gotcha. We gotcha. And he's gone, just like that. What an entrance! Just like
I heard him.
You can't get a better entrance than you do on this show, guys.
There we go. How's
and
that?
He's back again. Hell of an entrance, Bobby.
Bobby, what did Jaylen say, man?
Talked a lot about their defense. That's the emphasis, certainly, and he likes where that's at. And I think the biggest thing I took away from this game.
Give us a quote.
I don't have the quotes off the top of my head,
right,
but yeah, I got one for you. So I asked about the dribbling in the, Jimmy, most careful way I could.
No, we were talking about that too. That's perfect. Go ahead.
I didn't come in like Jaylen, man. Everyone's saying the dribbling stinks. Like you're working on the left hand.
Hold on, Bobby. Just so you know, which you probably already do, but Jaylen fans are kind of sensitive. So a lot of comments are, they're gonna
be careful.
Yeah, be careful.
The stands are out.
So
the stands are out.
I said, I've seen you working on the ball handling a lot. You've always wanted to be a playmaker. Where do you feel like you're at with
butter
that?
him up.
Said, I feel great. I feel poised. I feel ready to have a great year. I put in a lot of work trying to make plays, trying to get guys open. I can't wait to show it this year.
Okay.
You confident he will?
Can't wait to show it this year. Can't wait to show his ball handling skills off this year. Josue, thoughts? That's not can't wait to win. It's can't wait to show off my ball handling skills. Is that right, Bobby?
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I think that he's someone that probably did work on this game. Like, don't get me wrong. I mean, I know a lot
I
of
would
people
hope so.
people
Damn.
but Jimmy, people made a lot about that video of him
hey.
dribbling with his left, which, by the way, probably got a Celtics intern fired because that was Celtics.com that posted that shit. Like, I was shocked.
Yeah.
I'm like, but
I asked and got a no comment. What the
I just feel like when you asked him about that video.
Yeah, no, not him. But I asked
you
what
asked
became
somebody in Celtics
of the video poster, and I got a no comment.
Oh, yeah, someone got in trouble. But yeah,
Hopefully
look,
it was just a
Jaylen,
warning.
like I said before, man. Like,
He
Jaylen's a professional. He's been around long enough that he knows what preseason's like, and he knows how important it is to go into this regular season. So I'm not worried about Jaylen. I'm really not. And I think the contract has a lot to do with that. I don't think it's pressure for him. I think it's validation, and I think we'll see that for sure. But you just wonder how much of that production, compared to what we saw last year, it's gonna be sustainable when you have guys like Porzingis and other options where you can sort of spread the wealth, spread the offensive production.
Yeah, and he's had a few moments, Jimmy, in the preseason where he's gotten deep into the defense. He talked a little bit about how crowded the paint was in this game, and it feels like when he gets underneath the rim, he can kind of throw the ball away sloppily from that spot. That's where I've seen most of his turnovers in the preseason. But 6 assists tonight, that's a good number for him. I feel like he's shooting the ball well. He looks ripped. I mean, you've probably brought up the Tatum weight, or we talked about it in the chat, but when it comes to Jaylen's physique, he's in great shape. He absolutely ripped at these practices and shoot arounds. Like, he's in phenomenal shape. Defensively, I love that he keeps talking about defense and setting a tone on that end. What I just worry about is where's he get his in this offense? Like, where's he get his ball time? Where's he get his shots from? They ran a lot of plays off the ball to get him shots in this game, and some of them got blown up. And then, of course, when he's on the ball, you just really want to see him make those quick, decisive decisions, and he doesn't always do that. So a big topic around this team right now, Jimmy, is sacrificing shots, sacrificing minutes. I just talked to Jason about the starting lineup. He's like, it's going to be tough. We have 6 starters, and someone's going to have to take that back seat every night. So it's on Jaylen as much as anyone some nights to sacrifice, maybe set the screens, shoot fewer times, get off the ball and make a quick decision when he catches it. And he's talked a lot about just sacrificing next to Tatum throughout his career. And it feels like on some nights with Porzingis here especially, he's going to have to really emphasize just getting Porzingis the ball, because it looks like he's going to hit every shot he takes this year, Jimmy. It's blowing me away. The guy's unbelievable.
Wait, say that again.
Porzingis,
Porzingis.
If you're Jaylen,
talking about Brown for a second.
Yeah, well, I'm connecting it to Porzingis because I think one of the biggest benefits of Porzingis being here for Brown is he doesn't always have to shoot. He doesn't always have to scan the floor when he gets the ball. He can just find Porzingis, and it's impossible to miss the 7'3" guy who's a mismatch against everyone.
We kind of started with Porzingis almost off the top, just talking about how ready he looks and how
it's crazy, man,
complete of a player he looks out there. Just his ability to just be able to affect the game from all levels of the court is something that we haven't seen really since KG. And again, not comparing him to KG, but similar vibe we're getting from from a purely basketball standpoint.
I'm ready to say it, Jimmy. And it's not even regular season game number 1 yet.
Wait, don't say it. Porzingis MVP?
No. Close.
Okay, what?
If he's healthy this year, I think he's going to be an all-star. No doubt about it.
Yeah,
he hasn't been an all-star since 2018. All-NBA is tricky because it's positionless this year, right? I'd go there if there wasn't positionless now, and it's probably going to be a lot of guards and wings. But if it was that old system with the third center, you might even want to talk about that because he's just going to shoot open shot after open shot. I mean, first play of the game again tonight, he's draining from the corner. He's draining from mid-range. You watch him in practice. He's hitting everything. He's got a weird shot, too.
All-star Porzingis.
Like
If that's
I'm
the
kind
case,
of,
Bobby, if that's the case, if they get All-Star Porzingis, assume they have All-Star Tatum and Brown, they could possibly have an All-Star Holiday. This is a team that has to be favorites to,
I'll get to Holiday in a
in
second.
your eyes, to win a championship.
Oh yeah, I mean, with what we're seeing in the preseason, there's still some questions, but they're gonna be a massive problem for pretty much every team they play against here, especially offensively. Now, they got to stop turning the ball over. Did that way too much in the first half, even with the shot making. But midway through the third, Jimmy, they were shooting 51% from the field, 50% from three, and 90% at the line. I mean, it's ridiculous. And Jaylen did say when I was talking to him, there's going to be nights where we're shooting like crazy, but when we're not, we got to find other ways to win. And that's, I still think, going to be the case for this team this year. But Tatum's banging in the post. Jrue's really good at that. You got a mid-range element with Porzingis and Brown. So I think you are going to find some offensive balance this year beyond the threes.
Well, that's just it. Because me and Josue were talking about earlier. They got too reliant on the three last year.
Oh, yeah.
They got to get back to basics, which is what you've been preaching for a couple of years, getting back to playing hard, tough-nosed defense and letting your defense transition into offense. And they're going to be a running gun team. We've seen it in the preseason. They're going full court press practically out there. So, I mean, they're definitely going to be a team that's going to be in your face. They're going to run it as much as they can. Holiday's going to get them moving. White's going to get them moving. They're not going to be, I pray to God, I get down on my knees tonight before I go to bed. And I will pray to God that they don't do this stupid half court, walk the ball up. You know, it's 10 seconds left in the shot clock before they start doing anything with it.
So things did get awry.
Things
did go awry a little bit midway through this game, late in the second, and Joe said it went till midway through the third, the offense falling apart. And it took a long time for someone to step up and stop the bleeding there. Again, you have so many ball handlers here, Jimmy. You have a lot of guys who can make plays. But even with Holiday here, and I do want to get to Holiday before we wrap the show.
We will.
It's too early, right? I don't want to overreact. He just got here 2 weeks ago. He's figuring things out. He's off the bench the first game. Now he's starting.
Are you on a Holiday now?
I just want to, and a little of this just watching the tape and looking back at his Milwaukee days. I just want to pump the brakes a little bit on the notion that he's going to come in here and solve all their offensive issues and be that every play point guard. Yeah, Jaylen said it, and I think Jason came close to saying it. It's going to be a lot like Smart. There's going to be flashes of brilliance. There's going to be big playmaking games where he has 7-8 assists. But you see the turnovers tonight, some sloppy stuff from him. And you did see that in his Bucks film. Sometimes he does get stuck in between decisions, throws the ball away in the pick and roll. I think can make some tough reads. And you even saw it right before halftime. He ripped off his headband and just stormed into the locker room, looked really frustrated. And I know, he's talked a lot about how shocking the trade was and how big of an adjustment it's been so far. He can't even find a house, apparently. He just hasn't found a place to live yet.
Well, with mortgage rates the way they are, I mean, gotta be
so
be
it's going to be a transition for him. And you know what, Jimmy? I've done a lot of reporting on it. I've been grilling Joe on it. It's going to be a starting by committee. But if you had to ask me today, who will come off the bench a week from tomorrow on opening night, I think it's going to be Jrue.
Wow. Okay. For how long?
He'll play a ton. He'll be the sixth man. He'll have a major,
how long will he come
role.
Off the bench for?
I don't know. It could vary game to game. It could take a couple weeks while he still continues to get acclimated here, or they could find out that's the best use for him.
Over under, how many games does he start for the Celtics this year? I put it at, if the over under is 60. How about this, 50?
It's a good question. I'll go under just because I do think he'll come off the bench for this team. It's a really tough choice, Jimmy. I don't want to undermine White. I think you want Jrue out there for as much as possible, and he'll certainly close. I asked him the other day, how important starting is to him. He says he didn't care. He just, closing is what's important. But White, I don't think you're at the point where you should bench White, even if he's perfectly fine going to the bench. I think you continue to emphasize him, and he's looked so good this preseason again. Horford, I was pleasantly surprised by how well he played off the bench in this game. So that's certainly an option that I'm willing to weigh more than I was before. But while Jrue's figuring it out, and while you have this group of 5 guys who just have this awesome chemistry right now, Porzingis has been here for longer. He's really acclimated to the guys who are already here. I think you at least start the year with Jrue off the bench. And again, that doesn't mean he's going to play 20 minutes or 15 minutes. He's going to play 30 plus. And Horford's still going to reel back his minutes this year. Just means he's going to play with the second unit, going to play with the ball in his hands more. And yes, Jimmy, he'll close the game.
So the reason why, and you might be completely right, and if he comes off the bench, I think enough people have been saying it now where there's obviously some reason to believe it's a possibility. I still find it hard to believe because if Jrue Holiday is arguably the best defensive player in the NBA and certainly regarded as the best defensive guard in the NBA, why do you want to let the opponent get comfortable or get into some sort of groove to start the game? If you have a guy that is literally, regardless of whether or not, say he's not super comfortable with the offense yet, he's not a liability on the offensive end, and he's the best guard, man defender in the NBA. You can just stick him on any given night, the opposing team's best scorer, and make it a pretty miserable night for that player. I mean, opponents will tell you when they see a team, they look ahead the schedule, they'll see a team with a player that's a great defender, and they'll just shake their head and be like, damn it, like that's not going to be fun for me that night, And so
you want him to set the tone.
I want him to set the tone. And again, I also think that, let's say he isn't familiar. Well, stick him with the best players on the team and get familiar. If he's coming off the bench, you already have an unsteady bench to begin with. So wouldn't you rather have a guy like Derek White who can anchor that second unit, mix in immediately with the starters because he has a lot of familiarity there, and that transition's a lot smoother? Again, I mean, if they're all going to play 35 minutes a game anyways, then maybe it doesn't matter that much. But for me, I almost want to punch the opposing team in the mouth right off the bat with a guy like Holiday.
Yeah, I get it. And I think there'll be some nights where that can happen. I don't know how you feel about starting by committee, but that's what Joe's talked about throughout camp, is that it could change any given night. Maybe you face a smaller
I do think it might change. Yeah, sure. Yeah, maybe Horford starts some night for all we know. White or whatever.
Honestly, it's social media posts again. We don't watch practice, but a lot of the highlights of their scrimmages have been Porzingis and Horford playing together against Cornet in the second unit. Mm-hmm. So, if that's something else you can read into right now.
Did you find it interesting that Horford came off the bench tonight, the last game that they're going to really be playing together before the regular season?
No, I mean, I heard earlier that they were going to do that. I think it's just because they want to get this look after bringing Jrue off the bench in that first game. And Joe said throughout camp, not to read into these lineups too much. So I think it was just another look for them to try. It started strong. It really did. That first quarter was awesome. But then in the second, again, things just got disheveled. And that's still my biggest worry about them this year, Jimmy, is as much talent as they've accumulated and as many answers as they've given themselves offensively, when things get stagnant offensively and it comes down to Tatum and Brown running things and making plays, is it still really going to go stale for a quarter plus here? I mean, again, Joe said post-game, things fell apart late in the second, late second, and didn't get right until midway through the third. And he said the most important thing is getting out of those ruts as fast as you can. But I don't think a quarter plus is a vast amount of time to get out of a rut. I mean, they let the Knicks bench guys effectively in this game come back from down big to within single digits there. So that wasn't great. Again, I just see Holiday going through the process of acclimating to this team and, getting connected with guys and running all the plays and doing the things they do. It was interesting. He, when I talked to him the other day, he said it's more defense that he's getting used to, like all the things that they're doing defensively. But tonight, I thought he just looked a little disconnected offensively, and it might be better for him. And he did a great job with it with the Bucks. When Giannis was out, Middleton was out, and he really had to run the show. He could pour it on, scoring, playmaking, running the show. Yeah. So he might be a good fit for that 6-man role. And it won't be like Brogdon last year where it's 20 minutes. He'll be a 30, 35-minute per game guy off the bench. He'll be closing these games. But just to start the game, I almost feel the opposite of you, Jimmy. I know you think that Holiday can set a great tone, and he can. But I love this tone that double big sets defensively. Horford and Porzingis blocking a shot together. Porzingis running up to the pick and roll, and Horford coming around the back and just making the guy shoot it off the backboard. There were some awesome moments with those two again playing together tonight. But credit to Horford, and Tatum did give him a lot of credit tonight. I think it's tough for Horford to come off the bench. I don't think it's a comfortable position for him. In fact, in the second quarter, I didn't get to ask him tonight because he took off, but he came like out of the locker room, or third quarter rather. I forget what quarter it was, but his second stint off the bench, he came out of the locker room and checked into the game. So it's a whole different process for him. I don't think it's an ego thing. I don't think it's oh, I deserve to be a starter. I think it's just he's started his whole career. I think that's tough to adjust to, especially, working with a second unit that he's not as familiar with. So I don't know. I'm not opposed to bringing Horford off the bench. It went really well tonight. But Holiday had some ups and downs with the starters out there that I think is a factor in this team considering bringing him off the bench.
You have any concerns from tonight's game? I know you mentioned turnovers.
The turnovers are so bad. Yeah, I mean, again, you gave yourself so many answers here, and it still looks sloppy at times, still looks stale at times. And yeah, again, you're integrating a lot of new guys, but some of the guys are the same here. White, Tatum, Brown, Horford. And those are the guys you mostly played in this game. And Porzingis, as we mentioned, was great here. So it shouldn't have been this sloppy. It's preseason, so we'll see how it looks next Wednesday. But that's my concern, certainly, is turnovers, ball handling. Who do you go to calm things down? And the easy answer is Porzingis, right? You give it to him, he can make something happen, even as a playmaker. I think he can really make some good decisions on the ball. Even early, he took this really tough three. I don't know if you remember his step back. It was first quarter, maybe the second three he took. Tough spot in a jam, took a step back three, rimmed out.
Yep.
But it's a move that's in his arsenal. I mean, he can hit that. The guy can just do so much. So my worry, Jimmy, I think if they really look for him and utilize him often, I don't mind if he takes 10 threes a game with how effectively he's hitting them. They're going to work him in the post. They're going to work him into the mid-range as they did tonight. That can be your answer. And for Jaylen especially, those two guys are going to be playing on the second unit a lot. Don't be scanning the floor, Jaylen. Don't be looking all over the place. Catch the ball, and if you're open, shoot it. And if you're not open, find Porzingis, because he's probably on a guy who's shorter than him, or he's probably open himself. It's going to be much easier, I think, for Jaylen to make reads with Porzingis out there. And same goes for Tatum. If you guys are in trouble, give it to this guy and move, and he's going to find you, or he's going to hit a shot. It's a really nice escape valve for them to utilize, having him out there. Even maybe a greater one than Holiday, because, Holiday's a great playmaker, good point guard, but sometimes the best way to avoid a turnover, and Joe has said this too, is just take a quick shot. Get an open shot, take it, fire it away. You might miss it, but at least you're not turning the ball over and you're setting your defense. That's a big reason Joe really loves threes, is you can set. You can get back and set after it. So I'm blown away by Porzingis. I think he's going to have a ginormous year. It's the health that's the only thing that worries you there. And then you're worried about the center depth a little bit if he does get hurt, given, the way Cornette's played. And Caden didn't even see time in this game. So that, I think shows where he's at in terms of the rotation. But I'm pretty high overall. Tatum said the practices have been exhausting. It's been a very intense training camp. They've had double sessions, so they've been going hard. I think that might explain the way they've approached some of these games, or even how they've looked in some of these games. And then, of course, just all the new faces too. But this was definitely the dress rehearsal, right, Jimmy? Your 5 starters. You had your 3 guys off the bench. They pretty much went the whole game.
Yep.
And we'll see if anyone else can break through later. But for now, I think it's going to be your 2 new guys and pretty much the same faces as last year.
I just want to quickly go back to your Horford talk for a second. Josue and I were talking about him closer to the beginning of the show, and just the fact that he did come off the bench tonight. He is on, the back half of his career, to put it extremely mild. What is he, 36 now?
37.
37 now. And you want this guy to be healthy for game 1 of the playoffs. Not game 30 or game 50 of the regular season or game 70 of the regular season. You want him healthy for the playoffs. So why the need to start him? I mean, wouldn't you rather prolong prolong his health as long as you can this year, because he has had, bang knee here, injury there. He's been in and out of the lineup with soreness,
I
and
think
he's
it's
not
been
playing
less injuries and
back-to-backs,
more wearing down, like late
more wearing
stages of
down.
playoffs. Yeah.
So at some point, I know you said he's maybe uncomfortable coming off the bench. Well, of course he is. He's never come off the bench aside from like his rookie year. He's a starter. He's always been a starter. But at some point in your career, unless you're LeBron James, you end up going to the bench. It's just part of sports, right? And so at some point that's going to happen, whether it's this year, whether it's next year. He's not going to start every single game of his career until the day he retires. Why not start that transition when you want to limit his minutes, if you can, right? You don't necessarily need to start him at the beginning of every game. You just want to make sure that he's effective when he's in there. It is matchup based. He doesn't want to bang down low anymore. He hasn't in a couple of seasons. He's basically on offense, corner 3-point shooter. He doesn't get to the line. So he's almost becoming more of a role player and again, it's still a big role and he's still important, but I feel like he fits more of that reserve role now than he ever has. And in doing so, you kill two birds with one stone because you preserve him for the playoffs when you're already thin and you want to make sure that you have everybody.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And maybe that's where you end up going by the time the playoffs come around. Maybe that's the best way to spread Porzingis and Horford's minutes across the course of a game.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to weigh how much Al can be a closer too for this team in certain matchups, just because of the fact that Porzingis is going to be a guy who plays back close to the rim. So if you're playing the Warriors or something, someone who's really going to space you out, that's going to be a challenge, I think. But to your point on sustaining him through the course of the season, I think you can do that with him starting. You're going to give him the off nights. I think you can give him even more off nights now with Porzingis available and other guys in the mix here. You're going to shave down minutes. Again, I'm just forecasting what I think's going to happen here. I wouldn't bench Jrue. I'd probably move. It's tough. It really is a tough decision between these six guys. I'd probably push come to shove, move White to the bench if it was my choice, even though that hurts too. But
again, don't forget, he's still going to get 35 minutes.
Yeah, so that's my point. Holiday's still going to get 30-plus minutes. In turn, Horford's probably going to be closer to 25, 20 rather than 30, where he's lived the last couple of years. And back to his minutes in recent years and the wear down, a lot of that's been because Rob's been out, right? So Al's had to play the entire game and log huge minutes at center because Rob's been unavailable in recent years. If Porzingis is down, they're going to be in trouble because that's going to happen again here. And then you're really starting to look at the center market to add some depth to this team at that spot if that happens. But if that happens, I think your championship hopes are damaged anyway. Like, you're really relying on Porzingis this year, and that's what you decided to do when you moved off Rob and when you moved off Smart. So I'm not super concerned about Horford's longevity with this team at full health. I think they can find ways to shave down his minutes and without bringing him off the bench, still use him regularly alongside Porzingis, which is important to me. I love double big. I love the way it boosts this team's defensive ability. And the Jrue thing to me is temporary, Jimmy. Like, once he's fully integrated, once he's in the swing of things, I think at that point you can think about starting him.
Okay. All right, Bobby, I hear you. We want to tell everybody about our sponsor, HelloFresh. Good friend of the show, HelloFresh.com/CLNS50. You want to use the code CLNS50 for 50% off and free shipping on your HelloFresh purchase. With HelloFresh, you can get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's the #1 meal kit. I made a massive mistake tonight because I didn't have my HelloFresh ready to go. And
you got to have your HelloFresh ready to go.
I had to make – I went to the butcher and I bought something called a pork porchetta. And I had no idea what I was doing. The guy told me to sear it. I tried to sear it. Smoke alarms go off in my apartment building.
You got to wave the towel.
I got the pillow going. I'm like, this is why I need HelloFresh. I don't have to worry about all this. The directions are there. The ingredients are there. I made a huge mistake tonight. If I had HelloFresh, that wouldn't be an issue. HelloFresh does all the shopping and meal planning for you. Ingredients arrive at your doorstep, pre-portioned, ready to cook, along with pictured step-by-step recipe cards. Again, I needed the recipe cards tonight. So go to HelloFresh.com/CLNS50 and use your code CLNS50 for 50% off, plus free shipping. Again, that's HelloFresh.com/CLNS50 for 50% off, plus free shipping. Yeah, America's #1 meal kit, HelloFresh. Bobby, final thoughts from tonight. We have the last preseason game on Thursday. I have a feeling it won't mean much.
Yeah.
So tonight's game was probably the last real good look at these guys until opening night.
Yeah, they're pretty close. And Joe said it tonight. I like where we're at. He had that bad stretch there, but to open this game shooting the way this team did, I think shows you their upside. It's going to be a overwhelming offensive team at times, but I just keep going back to Porzingis, man. I am just enthralled by what this guy's doing, the shooting, but the defense, Jimmy. I knew, that was the first thing I said when they traded for him. This guy's a perfect fit defensively for this team and the way they want to defend. And I don't have numbers because they're not tracking numbers in preseason. Even the NBA site isn't on their game yet. They're still warming up.
Yeah.
But I'd have to imagine if you looked at the shooting by players against Porzingis, you tracking numbers against him, I'd have to imagine it's been in the 30s because he is just contesting and sending away so many shots. And it's not even just blocks. Like, guys are going in there and missing bad against him. He's in on so many plays. Even his ability to get out on the perimeter, better than I expected. So I'm excited about him. The Jrue thing's going to take time, I think, which is fine. That's why you have the regular season. And it's not like seeding super important. I think that's going to happen naturally for this team. So he can continue working on that into the year. Side point, loved Hauser tonight. And credit to him. He started in a little bit of a slump to open preseason. Ended hot. I thought he was outstanding tonight. Driving, drawing fouls, even making a nice pass to, I think, Jaylen for a 3.
Yeah, nice little no-look to, I think, Horford in the corner, too.
Yeah, so he came into camp with a lot of competition, right? We were debating, could someone knock him out of his spot? Tonight showed it's all his. No one else really played other than him at that backup wing spot.
Yep. All right, folks, that'll do it for tonight's show. We will be back Thursday night, final preseason game of the preseason against the Charlotte Hornets. Again, that might be, that game is still like, if you're a diehard Celtics fan, that's a really fun game because you get to see a lot of players that you typically won't see. Mm-hmm. And that's the last time you might see some of them for a very long time. Or, a guy or two might make a case for that end of bench spot or two. So we will be live after that one. And then regular season's here, Bobby. We're going to I think we're doing a little preview show next week before the opening night tips off. And we'll have to get our bold predictions ready and everything else.
Oh, it's an annual tradition. Make sure they're good.
They have to be extra. Make sure yours are bold this year, please. Don't get John angry.
Is my All-Star one not bold enough?
I would say it's teetering the line.
It's going in the right direction.
Bold would be saying 4 Celtics players make the All-Star team.
Hey, my Holiday one feels a little bold, so we'll see if that ends up happening. That one can be proven right or wrong quickly.
That's true. Bobby thinks that Holiday will only start 2 games this year and average 13 minutes a game. Very specialized. He's Peyton Pritchard this year. He's going to be Peyton Pritchard. All right, guys. Thanks again for watching tonight's Celtics with a 123-110 win over the Knicks. We will see you all on Thursday. This is the Garden Report. Peace.